Hello and welcome to Birth of a New Dimension. My name is Aurora. I'm coming to you today from outdoors in my beautiful sunny garden while I am going to speak to you about these concepts of giving birth literally to a new dimension. So apologies for any background noise, but I'm telling you it's worth it for me to be out here, not only for the intercommunication of the multiple fungi on my big toe touching the surface of the earth that I'm standing on, but also so that I can directly ingest the beautiful broadcasts from the sun and the stellar network and turn them into auditory broadcasts that can be recorded and sent out to you for future ingestion. So I'm here, it's a beautiful sunny day, and I like to joke that I am doing photosynthesis, or that I'm photosynthetic while I'm out here. I truly derive ideas, creative energy, and inspiration from ingesting sunlight directly without the intermediary of a chloroplast, a plant that catches a photon and turns it into a starch or a sugar that you and I can eat, or an animal that eats a plant that is made of captured photons, that this is direct ingestion. And on today's broadcast, what I'm going to talk about is how experts do star travel. Brief pause. So that's why it's worth it to brave the elements and be exposed to some background noise out here today, because I'm going to be speaking all about creating this consciousness connection, this bridge that connects you as an individual to this network of consciousness, and to describe in detail how that allows for expanded freedom, or expanded latitude, where you can travel, where you can go, and what you can experience. So right now, we as individuals and we as a collective species and planetary biosphere, we are engaged or undergoing a metamorphosis. And this metamorphosis is very similar to what the very ancient Egyptians held as the focus for their entire daily waking lives and their afterlife. It is the idea of this journey of immortality. So ancient Egyptians believed that if one acted well during one's, living portion of experience, that at the time when you dropped your physical body and were no longer corporeal, that you would experience an afterlife, and that the afterlife would be on the sun bark of Ra, as it is called. This is the solar disk. I think there's too much background noise. I have to move inside. So the ancient Egyptians believed that during the day, the sun's disk would travel across the sky, and that this was like a type of starship, and that there were actual beings that lived on that disk that they called the bark, B-A-R-Q-U-E. It's like a raft that would sail down the Nile. So they envisioned the sun's disk being like a raft that is sailing across the sky. And the idea was that if you lived well during life, that you would be able to cultivate the aspects of self, or the characteristics that are necessary to make that journey in order to get on board of that vessel, that sun bark that goes across the sky. So I'm not telling each one of us to act like an ancient Egyptian, but I'm bringing that up in order to get across like the mythological heritage, this idea of beings that occupy the sun. I'm going to tell you all about this, don't worry. So the sun and all of the stars are portals. They are not merely generators of light, like a giant light bulb in the sky. They're not merely, as science on Earth right now describes them, like a thermonuclear, big, giant, glowing ball of gas. So stars are points of consciousness, and they are living beings, and they have a metabolism, and they have a lifespan, and they have a trajectory, like a direction, in exactly the same way that each one of us is spiraling through the time field and through our own individual time vortex, and becoming in greater levels of refinement and alignment with the core timeline, or the core possibilities, or the central version of who you are. In exactly the same way, the stars are also going through this refinement experience. So stars are portals. They are also generators of ideas. We don't just derive our gross physical energy, the energy, like starches and sugars. You put some gas in your gas tank and combust it and it makes it go. That's not just what we are eating. Like when we eat food, when we eat plants or animals, we are actually ingesting emotional energy. So it's not just the stored up physical energy that we can then use to make the steam engines of our body go. It's actually consciousness, it's actually possibilities and probabilities. So I've described in the past how there's a beautiful apple tree down at the end of my driveway, and all year long that apple tree is in rapport. It is having an intimate partnership with the sun, and that tree is thinking all year long about its reproduction, and trees' reproductive organs are called apples, and it creates these beautiful reproductive organs that we can then eat. And so I understand that the tree is an intermediary. It is actually a translator, taking the raw materials or the uncollapsed aspects of energy, that's probability and possibility, that's being emanated from the sun and the stars, and transforming it into, or translating it into, a physical object that we can eat and that can nourish our physical bodies. So now we're starting to understand that the stars emit consciousness. These are giant balls of consciousness in the sky. And the life forms that are on the planets that surround a star, these are like the projects of that star. The star that emits light and emits life cares profoundly about the life that it has emitted. This is the whole idea, like you are not abandoned by some far distant abstraction, divinity in a far distant place that is kind of sterile and removed from here. Not at all. The divinity that we are connected to is intimately here and cares about every moment of your life, and cares not only about you as a macroscopic entity, but cares about the behavior and trajectory of every single piece of you, like every single particle in you, all of your molecules and all of your atoms, that the sun and the stellar network actually cares about all of those pieces of you. So I say this all the time also, that clank metal spaceships are not required and are not encouraged for experts to transfer their consciousness from star system to star system. So any space race that you might interact with, if you see a giant, majestic, clank metal spaceship flying through the atmosphere and little green men get out and they say, "Hi, we're from another world," you can say to them, what makes your starship go? What makes your technology apparatus function? And if they're honest, then they would say, our technology functions on trapped and victimized consciousness, and we distort DNA and we distort and hijack the time field in order to do this. They might not be honest. But actual experts do not require a clank metal vehicle. And let's even examine this concept. Just here at the surface of Earth in terms of economy. In order to make something like a big giant rocket ship, if you have the resources of a particular country, and let's say there's 1 million resources available per year, and let's say that you are devoting 500,000 of those resources to build a giant clank metal spaceship, and at the very same time that you're doing that, let's say that there is the problem of poverty or starvation or disease in that very same culture that is devoting half of its resources in order to create a giant clank metal spaceship. So I'm trying to say that just as here in the Earth realm, it is very, don't be impressed by enormous mechanical achievements if they come at the expense of social equality or fairness or taking care of everyone that is actually here. So that's what I'm, with so many words, you can tell it's a little bit challenging some days to find the right words. These space races that create large technology-based apparatuses or machines or whatever, they are not only siphoning energy off of the time field and distorting that natural living embroidery for their own purposes, they don't have their SHIT together in terms of social equity. So there's huge inequity in the allotment of resources in their world. Because if a group of beings wants to come to your planet and purport to be gods, like, hi, we just flew in a big giant clank like metal spaceship, we're gods, then you would have to imagine, oh, so you're gods, so that means that in your world everybody is well taken care of and you're very divine and benevolent. Ha ha ha! No, they're not really like that. So, and also we can say that these are the type of gods that would write a religious book about a God that doesn't take care of and love everyone, that, rejects certain people and even kills certain people, that would be considered. So those, what I'm trying to say, those are the people that wrote that holy book that gave people the idea of an angry, violent, capricious, or arbitrary God that would just decide to kill its creations on a whim or because it is convenient. So if a bunch of beings come to your planet and they say, hi, we want you to worship us. We flew here in this giant metal spaceship. Please worship us. And you can say, awesome, so you're gods. What does your starship run on? And if they do not say something along the lines of it runs on pure love or, pure creative energy, the energy of pure consciousness, if it is running on trapped and victimized and distorted, basically murder and rape, then they cannot purport to be gods. And also, if the very existence of this giant metal spaceship means that they have had to redirect their resources, the allotment of resources, in a very unfair and unhealthy way, that also means that one would not be very impressed. One would not be unduly impressed by these visitors to the planet. That's not the only way to visit another world, though. There are other ways. So I just moved into my studio because the neighbors are doing some kind of rototilling of their garden, and it's very loud out there. Here in my studio, I'm actually holding a lovely flying rainbow lasagna, and this is how experts do star travel. So I bring this up when I talk about myself like this. The truth is, I am not egotistical, and I don't bring up these things merely to say, I am so great. Even if it is truthful, we each are so great. We each should be very happy to share the things about ourselves that are so great. But I don't just bring it up for that purpose. I actually bring up and talk about these things in order to describe the provenance of the flying rainbow lasagna, the backstory. Where did this come from? When I first got here, so I am a walk-in, even though the word walk-in is not my own, and I'm learning how it can be misinterpreted. So in recent times, I've been describing myself as a galactic abstraction. So I am not usually an anthropomorphic form, like this one-headed, two-armed, two-legged form that is here on this physical Earth surface. And in order to be in this body, what I had to do was to create a portal, a doorway, an oscillation through which my galactic-sized or galactic scale consciousness could, transfer. If you have information on one hard drive, how do you get it into a different hard drive? Even though I'm not a transhumanist and I do not pretend that this is all about computers. So what I did was I invented or created this genetic oscillation that I name the flying rainbow lasagna. And so whenever I want to talk about the flying rainbow lasagna, I like to characterize it. This is not something that I just, thought about one day sitting in a sunny garden or, working in my studio, at the drawing board, scribbling furiously away with paper and pencil. That is not the way this idea was generated. It was really under great duress in the higher dimensional world while there was a great battle or conflict that was going on, and it was done spontaneously. So it was not the type of thing where I said, first of all, I'm going to shop around for a body, like who's got a good body down there? And I also did not, trying how to find the right words to talk about time. But in preparation for this experience, I did not spend time saying, how can I make this thing, like making a rough sketch before I made the actual painting or the actual sculpture. That is not what experience is like at that higher level of higher dimensional level. And it's also not what this experience was like. It was a total, I'm snapping my fingers now, a spontaneous creation. And it was created just like that famous expression down here, necessity is the mother of invention. I created it because I had to. When I say under great duress, that's like, the idea that you have a gun to your head or that, there will be horrific consequences if you don't do something. So I was in a position where if I didn't do something, either the options were death, complete unmaking, death, disarrangement, or becoming completely co-opted by evil and completely, steamrollered, and like a virus on your computer. You have a virus downloaded to your computer and then not be able to use your own mind anymore. And neither of those were appealing possibilities to me. And so what I did was I created and invented a new possibility. If you are Star Trek fans, what I did was Kobayashi Maru. This is from Star Trek with Captain Kirk, one of the movies when Captain Kirk was at Starfleet Academy and he was being trained to be a Starfleet captain. He was put into a simulator that was said to be a no-win scenario, and it's called the Kobayashi Maru, where no matter what you do, your ship is going to be destroyed and you're all going to go down in flames. And he's the only person who ever succeeded at that no-win scenario. And what he did was he reprogrammed the computer. He reprogrammed the game so that it had a new option, so that he could do something different and everybody didn't have to die. This is a very positive thing. Like it's, I'm using a lighthearted cultural reference to Star Trek in order to explain a profound concept. The idea that we are each powerful experiencers here in this world, this reality, this holograph, this holodeck rather, this reality is very fluid and it really responds to us. And so however we are defining it, or whatever word we use to describe this realm, you don't have to just take it at face value. You don't have to just say, oh, well, the only options that exist are strawberry or vanilla, and that's it. And if I don't like those two options, then nothing else can possibly exist. What you can actually do is you can say, I'm going to invent a new flavor. And that is what I did as a galactic abstraction. In the heat of the battle, I spontaneously invented a new flavor, and I named it the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And when I say I invented it, I did it as this abstraction, not as the person that was, in the middle of being psychically attacked and suffocated and murdered, but really as an abstraction. It's like I saw this great unfairness that was going on, and I said, I can intervene, I can do something. And I'll also characterize this. There are all of these different schools of thought or value system in the multidimensional world, and some beings are non-interventionist, and I'm clearly an interventionist. Non-interventionists, these are beings that are saying something along the lines of, that they just observe imbalance and they don't actually do things in order to try to rectify the time field. And I'm totally a freedom fighter. I am not afraid of jumping in and actually, diving in, having the first person experience of doing this, because that is how you actually fix and heal things. Don't do it by being a far removed, far distant person and just trying to wave your magic wand and, call it in long distance. It doesn't work that way. The only way that it really works, or not only, the most effective way, is to actually put your body on the line and you actually embody these truths with yourself. So I, the galactic abstraction, on a much larger scale than a small individuated human, perceived the unfairness of the situation, and I said, I am doing this. And what I did was the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And like I say, all of this was very spontaneous. And I say all of this in order to give you an idea of where the concept came from and how it was generated, that it was not like I said, comfortable, sitting in a garden or comfortably sitting in my studio or something like that. It was really along the lines of a battle or an epic war where you have to do something or be steamrollered or be unmade. And that I also recognized the position that I was in. If I didn't do anything, and if that evil virus, computer virus of the mind, infected me, that it would go through not only me, but many others too. It's like if you understand that you are connected to a network, and that what happens to you will then be passed on to the rest of the network. And that network is this stellar network. You could call it heaven, but let's try to get away from biblical literalism. It's this stellar network of consciousness. And I really understood that I needed to be like an energetic firewall and not allow that malevolence to infect the entire consciousness. So what I did was I created the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. This is a new dimension. It is a higher dimensional format of the formerly donut-shaped or toroidal energy field and DNA of this body. And it doesn't just apply to this body, because anytime one person does it, everyone can do it. The first guy that ever ran a marathon, this was in ancient Greece at a place called Marathon. And it was such an incredible athletic feat and such an achievement. He became very famous. They named the race after him, and he died. He promptly died. He ran the race and he promptly fell over and died because it was considered to be almost superhuman. But now humans run marathons all the time. It is considered normal. People run it in Boston and in New York every year, and they don't drop dead promptly right afterwards. And so what I'm trying to say is the first person that did that stretched the envelope of what was possible and redefined the boundaries of what is considered possible with the human body. And then after that happened, afterwards, it was much easier after the trailblazer blazed the trail and then dropped dead for everyone else to be like, wait a minute, we can actually do this. So this is analogous to anything that you wish to do in life. If you can see someone else, some other human as a template, you can say, that guy did it. If that guy can do it, I can do it. I'll figure out what was his training regimen like, how did he approach it, and then I will do something similar and I will do it also. So it's not just the physical capacity to do something. When we stretch the boundary or, stretch this envelope of what is possible as a human, we are also stretching our conception of what is possible as a human, because certain limitations have been defined, and then these are mental limitations like a program or like a boundary. I'm almost envisioning like a guardrail on the side of the highway, a wall that says you're not allowed to go beyond this wall. And if you want to go beyond that wall, there's great pressure, or that it takes great effort in order to do so. But if you are able to move that boundary, then all of a sudden, all of humanity has an expanded opportunity. So this is what is truthful in the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. I like to say I'm the first, but I'm not the only. And this is open source code for your DNA. So I do not pretend to be the only Flying Rainbow Lasagna that will ever be in existence. However, I can take the credit for being the first one and figuring this out. And expanding the boundaries of opportunity, like redefining what it is possible to do when one is within a human body, when one is within one of these human containers. Because also the human container used to be shaped differently and used to function differently. This is in the antediluvian, pre-flood, sophisticated culture before we had our genetic degradation. Brief pause. So we used to have a very different genetic format, and our planet and our consciousnesses were invaded. And this happened between 10 and 20,000 years ago. And this is the ultimate primary trauma. We have been traumatized as a planet. We have been raped and victimized as a planet. And then we got Stockholm syndrome. That's when you fall in love with your abuser, or, romantically feel attraction or sympathy for your abuser. And that is all of Earth religion. All of Earth's surface religions have been programmed into humanity by the very beings that reduced human consciousness and said, basically, worship me as your God. But it's not true God. It is a demiurge, is a good word for it. Small g God, a lower level of consciousness that, clearly, well, maybe not clearly if you are on this planet amidst these distortions, but a really loving parent would create a child in freedom and then say, now go and be free. A really loving parent would not say, I create my child and you are now my slave and I keep you under duress forever. And then I will own and control you even in your afterlife. But it appears that is what the small g God has created, and it's all a distortion. So, okay, Flying Rainbow Lasagna is a new option. It is a new flavor in the ice cream repertoire. It's not just vanilla or strawberry. You have the option now of Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And you have that option because I invented a new flavor, and I invented the new flavor because I needed to eat a new flavor in that moment. And and that's also a big part of this too, interdimensional ethics. We create things and we do things because we need them. Like I needed that on a personal level. Like I made that peanut butter and jelly sandwich because I was hungry. I didn't just make it because I saw someone else was hungry. This has to do with interdimensional ethics. Why intervene? I said there are some beings and they feel that it is most pristine or most impeccable not to intervene. And this is like being in the time field and being a genetic virtuoso, and when you sing and when you're supposed to be quiet. And these beings, they are always trying to be quiet because they think that they can never sing the right notes. But I clearly advocate learning the musical score and singing the right notes as being a participant in this large genetic symphony. Yes, so my philosophy or my feelings on this is that one is in the symphony. Like, don't pretend that you're not here. You're in the symphony. You're affecting your reality. You're affecting your context no matter what you do. And then it's just a question of what flavor or what characterization of effect are you having on your context? Is it benevolent, malevolent? Are you, harmoniously integrating your notes with everyone else? Are you singing horrible notes that don't integrate? So I created this peanut butter and jelly sandwich for myself. I use a lot of analogies here. I'm trying not to mix my metaphors. I didn't just do flying rainbow lasagna because I said someone else is hungry and I want to feed them. Because then you can say, well, why don't I just fly around the entire cosmos, finding people that are hungry and making sandwiches for them? So part of interdimensional ethics has to do with having a personal investment or a personal stake in the outcome. And I also liken this to being a voter. Like, if I want to affect what's going to happen in France, it's not appropriate if I live in the United States. The French people should be self-determinant and they should determine what's happening in their own country. If I want to influence what is happening in France, I should go to France, become a citizen, and then gain voting rights, and then actually vote and actually affect what's happening there. So this is what I did on this planet. I didn't just say, hey, some great unfairness is happening on the surface of planet Earth. I'm going to be here in a hyperspace realm just observing it. I didn't say that, or just waving my magic wand to try to change it from outside of the system. I didn't do that either. Clearly, what I did was I dove into the pool. I said, someone is drowning in that pool, and I'm going to dive in there, and I'm going to change this. And the action of diving in is the action of the flying rainbow lasagna shape. So I'm the first being that did this, but I don't have to be the only one. And that is why I share all of this information. It's why I do my webinars. Brief plug, my webinar series is called Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. And so I have recorded lessons that are like formal, you require formal enrollment. And then I have informal videos and webinars. And I do it that way because I'm definitely trying to sustain myself and, charge tuition in order to sustain myself. And also, I wish for everyone to be, quote unquote, lasagnified. I wish for this whole entire planet and everyone who's here and all of the consciousness is here and consciousness is everywhere to be able to access these ideas and apply it to their own genetic code. I don't want to just be the only person that ever ran a marathon and then no one else ever ran a marathon ever again. No, no, no. In fact, that's why I'm here. I didn't just say like, okay, I did that and now dust my hands off and I'll go on to the next gig, right? I said, no, I'm actually highly invested in this experience and I want to be down there and I want to tell everyone all about it. This is my motivation for being here. And I hope that this also characterizes my motivation for when I do these webinars. Like, I charge money for them, but if you don't have money, I still want you to participate because that is valuable. Participation is valuable. The more musicians that we can get playing this song and tuning up their bodies and improving the music of the symphony, the better my life personally becomes, the better our planetary experience becomes, and the more that we can change and redirect, let's say, this whole entire malevolent intention. There's a lot of malevolent intention for our planet, brief pause. The invaders that invaded about 10 or 20,000 years ago, they didn't just say, I'm going to rape you and I'm going to take over your culture and I'm going to siphon off energy. They had an end game, and the end game is being played out right now, and it has to do with a total planetary harvest. Just like at the end of the season, you grow corn or you grow wheat, and you're taking care of these grains, and then at the end of the season, it's time to chop them all down and take them and put them into your grain processor and make them into your food. This is the malevolent plan. I call it a long con, like a long con game, confidence game. And it was programmed in by those same Stockholm Syndrome small g gods that said, I'm going to take away your higher psychic faculties, I'm going to blind you, going to domesticate you so that you have to eat physical food. You have to kill another in order for you to stay alive. And I'm also going to tell you that you're dirty and you're worthless and you're inept, and that if you want to do anything or have anything, you're going to need an externalized God to tell you what to do and where to go. And oh, by the way, when you die, you're going to have God's permission to go into a heavenly realm. Otherwise, you're going to suffer forever. And so all of those are total distortions. All of those are not truths of the way that the cosmos actually functions. And you can understand the motivation for a malevolent being to set that up. It would be like if a person said, as a parent, I'm going to have a child, and when the child comes out, I'm going to poke them in the eyes so that they become blind, and I'm going to tell them that someone else poked them in the eyes, and that I'm going to tell the child that the parent is a very wonderful, benevolent parent for taking care of them because they've been blind for so long. You can understand that is really, when I say long con, because if we say human history is about the past 6,000 years of recorded, written human history, this is something that goes on far, far before recorded human history. And also the capacity to perceive. If you are a Doctor Who fan, I don't watch a lot of TV and movies and videos and things like that. Pop culture is what I'm trying to say. I'm not that invested in human pop culture. I do watch the things that are necessary so that I can get the cultural shorthand, so that I can say, hey, if you have ever seen this movie or if you've ever seen this TV series, this explains it and illustrates it very well. So here's a good illustration from Doctor Who. It's episodes about, quote, the Silence. This is a group, an extraterrestrial species that is more ancient than humanity and invaded our planet, millennia ago, and that they're not invisible to humans, but that they have made it so that humans can't remember them when they perceive them. So you only can understand them when you're looking at them, when you see them in front of you, but as soon as you turn away, you forget that you've seen them. And that in the TV series, this is how this space race has maintained its dominance over humanity and Earth culture for so very long. And of course, I'll give you the synopsis. They make it so that humanity can begin to perceive these formerly imperceptible extraterrestrials and fight against them. This is the whole idea. This is what we are currently experiencing. It's why those TV shows exist, in order to give solidarity and ammunition to each one of us as individuals as we are fighting this enormous battle of consciousness. I say birth of a new dimension because I like to talk about it as if we are giving birth. And I also have to admit that in many ways it feels like a battle. It feels like a war. It feels like not only we are under the duress of, a baby trying to be squeezed through a tiny opening in order to get into the next world, because that is very difficult and challenging. And it's also, when you're a baby trying to be born, it's not like you're fighting against, whatever. You don't have an adversary. You're just fighting for your life and to be born. And in a lot of ways, I think that's a much healthier analogy than the analogies of war, which are always Team A versus Team B, and they're both fighting for supremacy. But the idea of a struggle against an adversary and having aspects intentionally created to harm you or impede you, that part of war and battle is apt. That is applicable to our present situation, because when you're trying to be born and you're a little baby, you don't necessarily have someone else that's trying to, push you back up the birth canal so that you can't come out. And that we are experiencing that too on this planet. So things like the pollution that we experience. We experience pollution in terms of our food and our water and our air. And the air, the problem is the nanoparticles that are being sprayed, the chemtrails, persistent aerosols. This doesn't just get into your lungs or coat your eyeballs or, go inside of your cellular structure, that this is also a screen blocking out the energy and thought transmission from the sun and the stars and the stellar network. And that's, what I'm talking about here. That sunlight is food or fuel for our metamorphosis. And I'll get back to that metamorphosis. And that's from what I was talking about in the beginning of this broadcast. Ancient Egypt, and they believed in the metamorphosis. What they actually believed was that when you were wrapped up like a mummy, you were analogous to the pupal form, moth or butterfly in a chrysalis. So here, in the insect lifespan, it starts out as an egg, the egg hatches, and then it becomes a a little one-dimensional or two-dimensional being that can only move on the flat plane. And then after it eats enough and gets enough energy accumulated, just like a little electron, it has to accumulate lots and lots of energy and excitation to make that quantum leap. When the little caterpillar has eaten enough leaves, it then is ready to get cocooned in its chrysalis and undergo its metamorphosis, process of transformation, and then come out as its adult winged form. And in doing so, it gains an additional dimension, and it gains an additional degree of freedom. It gets wings. It's no longer stuck to the two-dimensional surface. It can now fly around in 3 dimensions and have much more freedom and latitude. And it also has a different food source. This is exactly the metamorphosis that humanity and life on the surface of Earth is undergoing right now. And that metamorphosis is going, like right now, humans are like the caterpillar stage. Caterpillars go around, if you have a garden, you probably don't like them very much because they eat leaves. They eat the leaves of the plants that we actually want to eat. So when you're a caterpillar, your only job is to eat as much as you can, get as much energy as you possibly can, and then to cocoon yourself into transformation mode, and then no one has a problem with butterflies coming to visit their garden because butterflies eat nothing but nectar or pollen. They eat the pure flower essence. They have different nutritional needs. This is how experts do star travel. We are undergoing this metamorphosis in order to prepare us for our journey. While we're on the planet, this is like while we are in our caterpillar phase, and we are meant to eat a lot of leaves like a good caterpillar and grow fat. And that's it, store up your energy. That's what you're supposed to do. And then, according to the ancient Egyptian funerary tradition, when you became a mummy and priesthood did the appropriate incantations, the sacred verbal vibrations over your body, that would then allow you to transform into your higher dimensional state. When you're in your higher dimensional state, you live in a different realm and you fly from moment to moment. This is the idea of the Ka and the Ba. And if those words sound familiar, like Mer, Ka, Ba, this is the star tetrahedron shaped in visualization field that you can perform around your own body, and that means light body vessel. It comes from the ancient mystery schools, and it actually is information that comes from ancient Atlantis by way of the ancient Egyptian mystery schools. So in Atlantis, or the antediluvian sophisticated worldwide culture, everybody ascended, nobody died, nobody hit the membrane of death. If we are analogous to bowling, none of the balls that were bowled down the bowling alley went in the gutter. Everybody got at least 1 pin when they bowled in ancient Atlantis, all right? You can tell I don't know a lot about Earth sports and human culture. I'm definitely a fish out of water. But the point is, nobody died back then, and the invention of death was the primary trauma. Like I said, when Earth was raped and the invaders came, many, many people died instantaneously, and that was the most horrific, horrifying thing you could ever imagine. I mean, I've had beloved pets die, and when you see, if you have a cat or a dog, and they used to be cute running around, and you love them, and then if you see them and they're dead and they're limp, and, their formerly pink paw pads are turning black, then you're like, that's horrible. And it's horrible. It's horrible to see your loved ones decomposing and turning ugly. And that the first time that ever happened on our planet was the most horrific, nightmarish, horrible thing. I keep using that word horrible, but it was like a horror movie, and people did not know what to do. And it definitely caused a type of psychosis or lack of ability to accept the events that were happening at that time. And just very briefly, that invention of death is analogous to the myth of Set and Isis and Osiris, Set being analogous to Satan, or the space race that uses technology. That in ancient Egypt, it says that Set was jealous of Osiris and killed him, and that was when Osiris and all of the other gods were immortals, and that was the invention of death, and that Osiris was dismembered, his body parts were sprinkled throughout Earth's surface, and that it was his wife Isis who went around, collected the body parts, put them together, and wrapped them up in dressings like a mummy, and said the original incantations, and used sex magic, sexual energy, in order to reanimate the mummy. I know that's a bit of a tangent, but I just wanted to put that in with this recording. So what we are supposed to be doing is changing and transforming while we are on Earth in this material form. And I've spoken about this before, how the word matter and material has as its root word mother, mater, and that this is supposed to be our mother, like the mother's womb, that this level of material experience is meant to be like the gestation cradle within which we grow our consciousness like little baby caterpillars until we are ready to do this metamorphosis and transition. And the transition is a transition out of this level of experience. So in ancient Atlantis, everybody ascended, and the ascension process is changing state without the intervening states of decomposition and liquefaction. Change state directly from a solid to a beam of light without having to go through, as I just stated, decomposition, which involves liquefying and, a slow process of releasing the stored energy that you accumulated during life. So to make the quantum leap, what that means on the subatomic level is a little tiny electron gathers together its energy in its energetic savings bank. It's called getting excited. It gets really, really, really excited. And when it gets excited enough, it has enough gas in its car or enough money in its bank account to make that leap all in one jump. It has to make sure if it takes 100 units of energy to make that leap, it's got all 100 units. It can't do the leap if it's only got 99 or 98 units. This is you and me. This is us in our present level of incarnation and experience here in the material world, gathering together our energy in order to make the leap of consciousness. When I say quantum leap, I'm not just being cool or talking about an old TV show. I am speaking about a leap that must happen all in one swoop. Like, you cannot do it in smaller increments. Can't do it in little baby steps. We have to make one big giant jump in order to get to the other side. And the other side is basically our adult winged format. Caterpillar turns into a butterfly or a moth. When the caterpillar is in its pupal form, when it's in its chrysalis, it becomes completely disarranged. It becomes completely dissolved. All of its organs, all of its arrangements become disorganized so that it can be rearranged into a new format. And then, of course, it emerges when it's ready. So humanity, in order for us to really do star travel in the correct way, we need to go through that period of being wrapped up in like quarantine from the rest of the world, and then being completely disarranged, and then being rearranged into a new format. Some of the changes that we will experience are we will be able to directly ingest sunlight, because I joke about this on some of my other recordings. In order to do star travel, like an expert does, you don't take all of your food and put it in a toothpaste tube and take it with you for, if you're doing a 50-year journey, you don't take 50 years worth of food in toothpaste tubes with you. No. How ridiculous. You think that way, or people think that way, because humanity is presently tied to the planet. That would be like, imagine a caterpillar that is envisioning what it's like to be a butterfly. And it's like, well, all I have to do is make certain to get like a little satchel full of leaves. And when I'm a butterfly, I can fly around carrying my satchel full of leaves so that I have something to eat. Not recognizing that when you are a butterfly, you will have a completely different food source than leaves. You won't have to bring your satchel full of leaves with you. So when humanity achieves its higher dimensional state, its butterfly state, its adult winged form, you won't be eating the physical foods that you eat here on Earth in your caterpillar format. That's why I say, when you are here with your taste buds and your tongue and your digestive tract in this format, honor it and take advantage of the opportunity. Whatever you're eating, remember that you are creating the digital, or let's say recorded for time and eternity experience of the analog experience of actually being here. You won't always be here. You won't always be here eating fried chicken. Some of the people that listen to my broadcasts are vegans. I love you and I respect your own dietary choices and preferences. And I do not mean to be causing you psychological distress when I describe my meat eating. And I still have to tell you that at my friend's Christmas party, this is like 7 years ago at this point, I don't usually eat fried chicken. I usually eat things that are much more, health conscious, like grilled chicken, or, I usually eat different types of food like that. But I do eat meat and I do eat protein. And anyway, my friend made this wonderful fried chicken that was manna from heaven. Soaked it in buttermilk, did all of the right spices, did all of the right types of breading, and fried in lard. And I ate that chicken and I said, I am making a recording for posterity with my taste buds. I am going to remember, and I can even call it up right now, like bringing up one of your favorite songs from your playlist. I have playlists of wonderful food experiences that I've had. And you know something? It's not even just the textures and tastes and nourishment that's in the food itself. It's also the love and the care that was put into it and the party atmosphere where I ate it. Like all of that, the experience of eating it goes into it too. So I encourage all of us, while we are here in our caterpillar format, while we still eat physical food, to create some really wonderful recordings of the experience. When you're eating, be mindful that you won't always, because I understand some people look at eating food as a chore. I mean, I'm different because I'm a walk-in, and so there's a lot more novelty for me in all of this. But I understand how some people look at food, and I love food, and I celebrate food. And these recordings that you have of what you experienced when you were in the physical world, these recordings will be part of like the recipe structure for the food when we do not have physical tongues, because we will eat pure consciousness. The tree at the end of my driveway grows apples that are actually thought forms. And when I'm eating them, I know I'm eating a thought form. And our adult winged form, when we don't have to use a clank metal spaceship to fly around, means we don't have to carry with us a whole bunch of physical apples to eat. Like the caterpillar that thinks we have to have a satchel full of leaves. We will not be carrying apples with us. We will carry with us the memory and the idea of eating apples. So now you can understand a little bit more when I describe my experience of my collective of consciousness. We don't fly around in a clank metal spaceship. We use a living vessel, or we travel in a living vessel to go from star system to star system, and that the food that we share with each other on that journey, it is pure love, it's unconditional love, and what motivates us to go from place to place is to get new experiences. So I'm here on this planet to have experiences with this analog, instrument of experience, and that includes eating things like fried chicken and having that experience, and then I take that in my repertoire or in my catalog, and when I'm no longer here in this world, in this format, I'll still have that in my repertoire. So how experts do star travel, a lot of it has to do with making a distinction between your eternal self and temporal ego. So temporal, this contains the word temporary, like this is not who you are eternally all the time. Your temporal ego is who you are defined by, I live at this house, this is my favorite sweater, this is my name on my social security card. None of those things are eternal. None of those things will be that thing that way forever. Your eternal personality characteristics are things like, I enjoy creating, or I enjoy collaborating with others, or I enjoy exploring things. And no matter who you are or in what format you would be doing those particular things. The energetic portals that are at the center of the stars, I want to say that they are like a keyhole. They're like a lock with a key, and the place where the key goes, that shape, whatever goes through there has to be shaped very specifically. That's like your eternal who you are is like the key that fits through that aperture. And if you have any extra stuff, any of that extra temporal ego stuff, you can't fit through that aperture. So in order to utilize the stellar network system of transferring consciousness, it is necessary to refine your consciousness. So the steps to becoming an expert star traveler, first of all, you have to learn to eat pure sunlight. You also have to refine your personality until you are the right shape to be able to fit through that aperture that is the doorway into the next world. And this is also very similar to the idea of inner earth, Agartha or Hagartha, Shambhala. This is not a place that you fly to with a physical helicopter. Doesn't matter if you have a helicopter that's full of gas and can fly for 1,000,000 years, you will not be able to fly your helicopter to Agartha. In order to get there, because it is shielded by like an energetic doorway, you have to match the frequency of the doorway, like a tone. La la la, the door is singing, and in order for you to go through the door, you have to sing the same note. That's what it's like. This is how experts do star travel. I have also characterized the living vessel that myself and my consciousness collective, my group of non-terrestrial beings, that the way that we travel in order to get on board of this vessel. It's a living consciousness, and you have to, it's more like making love. It is like you have to have the correct genetic format, and you have to think and feel and do the right things and have the right feelings. And there's no way to rape your way on board. There's no way to have non-consensual sexual contact and get on board in that way. That, because I mean, whatever. I won't get into rape, but the whole idea is that there are energetic firewalls or safety mechanisms that prevent unrefined consciousness from going into levels of refinement where they do not belong. So in order to get on the stellar network and go to far distant places with your mind and with your consciousness, you have to be refined and not carry with you certain characteristics that are defined as the temporal ego. Only the finest, highest level of personality characteristics actually get to go through that tiny little aperture. None of the fat. You got to trim the fat. I love fat people. I love fat. I'm not hating on you at all, but I'm trying to give the idea of like whittling away at all of the things that are plastered on top of the real you, until there's just that core principle of who you really are. And that is what allows you to go through these star apertures, these star portals. Let's do a brief contrast with that than the beings that use clank-clank metal spaceships. The clank-clank metal spaceships, I have defined those users as the fatty deposits of the cosmos. So on the one hand, in order to travel on the stellar network, as experts do star travel, you have to whittle away at all the fat until you're just a lean, mean, essential star-traveling consciousness machine, right? Not machine, organic supercomputer connected to the divine world. And on the other hand, the beings that have not undergone that process of refinement, they've actually done the opposite. They are like one tiny, skinny little muscle fiber that is surrounded by layers and layers and layers and millennia of fat. They are almost completely fatty deposits. There's almost no meat on that, on that lamb chop or whatever. It's all fat. And so for them, they would not ever want to go on the stellar network. They would lose everything that they have accumulated and everything that they value. They identify with their fat. They identify with their traumas, their unresolved emotional issues, the life lessons that they haven't learned yet. They identify with the sandbags that hold them down and weigh them down and prevent them from reconnecting with the concept of divinity or with the experience of divinity, as opposed to the stellar network, which is comprised of consciousnesses that are individuated, that are completely 100% connected to divinity. The stellar network is divine. It is God consciousness, and not small g God, not God of the Bible, not God of Jehovah, not God of any of Earth's surface religion descriptions. We're talking like an abstract God that is the great composer, great conductor, abstract creator of all of these experiences. So experts do star travel by whittling away at their ego until they are their completely core, necessary, central self, and also by cultivating the capacity to eat pure sunlight. And then when you begin to eat pure sunlight and get your energetic metabolism up to higher levels, you're supposed to be running your engine not like a steam engine, but more like a solar furnace. And you become much more efficient in the ingestion and excretion and use of energy. And then what starts to happen is you are able to create your own microclimate around your body. So it will not be necessary to have a aluminum foil space suit that you get inside of, because your energy field is self-generated. Think about Earth's magnetosphere. Earth has an atmosphere that is a protective gaseous envelope around her surface, and Earth also has an electromagnetic envelope around her that is called the magnetosphere. And humanity has one too. We have it. It's the time body. I draw pictures of it. There's tons of pictures of it on my website, flyingrainbowlasagne.com. This is ordinarily a weak field. Humanity needs to cultivate this field, and we cultivate this field in the New Age world. People talk about balancing their chakras, but I'm heartened to see that there's a lot of good discernment, and people are thinking clearly, and they're understanding. These vocabulary words have been hijacked or distorted. So the best description of it is raising one's energetic metabolism and reducing inner friction, and the internal dialogue is an example of inner friction. So basically meditation and mindfulness and doing this consciousness transformation. We're changing the levels of consciousness. This is the true expert star travelers do their journey as a journey of consciousness. So let's make a contrast with on Earth's surface, the astronauts right now that are chosen for the Clank Clank Metal space program are not virtuosos of consciousness at all. They are not chosen for their capacity to use their mind and do interesting loop-de-loops and do-si-dos with their mind. They're not chosen for their mental flexibility. They're chosen for their capacity to, fly an airplane upside down and not throw up, or other scientific or intellectual capacities. Or they're also chosen in terms of social. The characteristics that are weeded out are anybody who has done drugs and psychedelics. Those are not the people that are accepted into astronaut programs. No one who has actually experienced with going into higher levels of consciousness. Those are not the people that are chosen for the Clank Clank. So the Clank Clank Metal spaceship astronauts are chosen for their physical characteristics and their intellectual characteristics, not for their capacity to perceive and manipulate the fabric of space-time and consciousness. And the people that are doing that, what would be considered more like being a shaman or being a psychedelic adventurer. We could define those people as very unofficial astronauts. If you are taking a psychedelic or an entheogen and you are exploring higher levels of multidimensional consciousness, then you are like an amateur astronaut. Here's the challenge, though. If you go into space, quote unquote, as an amateur astronaut, are you prepared? Do you actually have a star chart? Do you know where you're going? Do you know about the different types of beings that are out there? Do you know how to navigate? Do you know how to return? So this is what I also say when people are experimenting with their Merkaba. I'm a very ethical teacher, and I would never say, here's the car, like take the car keys, drive to a horrible neighborhood with very little gas and break down and get a flat tire and be endangered. I would never say that to people. But if you just say, I'm going to hop in my Merkaba and fly around the cosmos and experiment with it, like that is a very capricious way to begin trial and error experimentation. I'm almost at the end of this broadcast, but I want to use the last few minutes in order to say that you do not have to do this journey alone as a lone adventurer flying through space. We do this journey, or we can do this journey as a collective whole. So that is how I travel, and I am connected to a collective consciousness, and we have cell specialization, meaning, just like in your body, not every cell performs the same duties as the other cells. They all work together. So cell specialization means that you are an individual and you do not have to, it's not like joining the Borg is what I'm trying to say. You do not become a carbon copy, cookie cutter, the same. You remain your individuality. So the basic idea is that in life as a caterpillar, eating physical food, we go through the process of personality refinement and become our true selves, and then we are ready to exit this level of reality, to be given birth by our mother, the material realm, and to enter into a non-material realm that is our true adult winged format. I'm going to keep talking about this in future broadcasts. Thank you for being with me on this journey.